And we're on. Rima the Jungle Girl. Thanks
Here
for being on Fitness and Consciousness.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I found you on Instagram and I saw that you had a podcast called Rima the Jungle Girl. And just before we started to record, you were about to tell me where that name came from.
Yes, it's a pretty cool story. And because it's the first thing I'm telling on this episode, I just want to give a little bit of context. So Rima is my real name. And I'm from California originally, but I live now in Costa Rica in the jungle. And just to give context, because it is important to what I'm about to say, I'm vegan. And I was an animal activist for many years. And before I moved to Costa Rica, I came here. I knew that it was where I wanted to live and was going back and forth to Los Angeles and was telling everyone that this is where I was meant to be. And my neighbor, who I was living in Venice Beach at the time, was in Ohio for Christmas, and he told me that he brought me something back from his trip and that when I saw it, he would understand why he got it for me. And he was in a pawn shop and he saw this comic book from the 70s. It was a DC comic book called Rima the Jungle Girl. And I had never heard of it before, and I was just freaking out. I was in disbelief because my name, first of all, is pretty uncommon. I'm Lebanese. It's from, in Lebanon, it's common, but growing up, no one ever had my name. And if I did happen to meet someone with the same name, it was normally spelt differently. And so this was spelled exactly the same way. And upon more research, I found out it's part of a 7-series comic book of Rima the Jungle Girl. She lives in the jungle. She's in Venezuela, though. But she's a vegan, essentially. It's before the word vegan was invented, but she doesn't eat animals or harm animals. And she uses her witch powers to harm hunters and poachers and people that are deforesting the rainforest. And so she was kind of an activist. And really, at that time in my life, it was a sign. It was a sign that I needed to know that I was on the right path of pursuing the life and the dream that I had. And it was sort of natural for me to become Rima the Jungle Girl. And there's more to the story. It was actually a book first and a movie. It's actually from the 1800s. So it's a whole character that I feel like I was born to play.
Well, that's really cool. I'm a vegan also, and
Nice.
Yeah, I quit eating meat when I was 15. I'll be 40 next month.
Wow.
And then vegan.
You look amazing.
Yeah, and like vegan, like about half that time. Yeah, that's really cool. And I found like that comic sounds very interesting in the movie and the book. I'm going to have to look into that. And I have a lot of friends that are like hunters, though. Like up until about a month ago, I was teaching at a wilderness survival school. Mm-hmm. Like a nature connection school, and I was teaching strength and conditioning there. Like I was teaching those kind of classes. I'm not the wilderness expert. I've been in the woods a lot since I was a little kid. But like when I guess like what led you to be vegan? What's that story?
Yeah. Well, I think maybe what you're alluding to is like that in certain instances, maybe that people hunt for lifestyle, or I don't know, that it's not so black and white. Let's just put it that way.
It doesn't mean they're bad.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, we won't get into a historical debate, but what I found for me in my lifestyle was that it wasn't necessary to eat animals anymore. It was something that I was doing because of culture, of tradition. I was told that I had to, but I never really loved it. I never grew up liking eggs or dairy. I was never a huge fan of it. It always made me sick. We didn't eat pork just for cultural reasons. I never liked seafood. It didn't feel natural to me. And I would eat chicken and beef, cows as an athlete because I thought I had to because of the protein myth. You have to eat protein, but I never really liked ingesting it. I always felt weird, and I remember brainwashing myself of like, this is a cold muscle of a dead animal, into like, you need to eat this sustenance. And so when I finally realized one day that that was all a lie and that you could actually be just as healthy, happy, and if not even healthier on just eating plants, it was a no-brainer for me. But it actually came from a documentary called Earthlings. I was watching it, and that night I was actually eating a steak while watching it. So it wasn't like I was, like, oh, I don't know. I wasn't animal rights before it, or it wasn't gradual. It was just kind of like I was eating animals. I saw all the realities of what was happening. I was like, no more. And then I realized about all the health benefits after.
Yeah, it's interesting how for a lot of people it is that there's a line, and then after they realize it, they never go back. And it was kind of like what happened with me. I had friends that were vegetarian, and they were dropping me off, and I remember talking with them in my mom's driveway. We'd been friends for a long time, and they were dropping me off. We were just talking in the driveway, and they just told me about it. I never ate meat again.
Yeah, interesting.
And that was 1994.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just like real easy. I don't miss it.
And it was way less accepted.
Yeah, it was harder to find. I was lucky to have like friends that were already vegetarian.
Right.
And like one of my friends, her mom was always cooking us good stuff. And
oh, awesome.
And so like now where I live in Indianapolis, it's gaining more and more popularity all the time. There's vegan only restaurants. There's like more restaurants that have vegan options.
That's awesome.
Waitresses know what vegan means. Usually, not always. It's not 100%, but yeah, it is cool how for so many people it is just this. As soon as it clicks, then it's over. Like as soon as they realize it.
Yeah, and to your point, before it clicks, there has to be, in my opinion, a willingness to be open-minded about it, because I found that with any person who was willing to hear me out with my arguments that I had, and was actually willing to listen to them in a non-judgmental way, not trying to prove me wrong, I'm pretty successful with turning them vegan, but it's the people who just don't even want to hear it or consider that it could be something that is a lifestyle choice for them. Then that's not going to click. There has to be the willingness to hear it, I think.
Yeah. There were some people that converted because of me also. I find that I don't really talk about it so much anymore, though. I used to be more preachy about it, but those days are pretty much over. If people are interested, I'll kind of tell them, but I don't get too
vocal. Yeah, so you're going to hear the cicadas. I'm, as I told you, in Costa Rica, so you might hear the whistling of the bugs in the background. You get the little ambiance of the jungle as well, just so your listeners know what's going on.
Yeah, that's kind of cool to hear, actually.
Yeah.
So you're also, like, as your main business, do you teach yoga? I know you're a psychotherapist.
Yes.
And are you
That's my main thing. Yeah. I'm mainly seeing clients now. I work online and in person, and my partner and I do retreats. He's actually a vegan chef, which comes in handy. And we collaborate. We put on epic events here in Costa Rica. And so he does chef's table dinners twice a week here, which is 6-course, really intimate, lovely, all organic meals. And so I help him, I host with him. And then I see clients and we put the retreats on together. So I teach yoga on the retreats, but I found that therapy is just my passion, and yoga I enjoy doing when there's a group that I can teach every day and we can grow together, and it's kind of part of the, the whole program, the week-long program, versus just kind of like teaching random classes here and there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. When I was listening to a podcast of yours earlier today, and you mentioned your like business partners with your, you're not married, right? You're just.
Yeah. So I was married. And
Okay.
if you listen to the podcast, I did an episode with my ex-husband, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, there was some parallels. I just heard one to be so far, but I wanted to hear more.
No worries. Don't worry.
Yeah, there was a lot of parallels that I already saw, and just I think the one I heard, it was I think it was one of the latest ones, like episode like 301 or 30 something like that, and you were talking about like you were in business with your ex.
Yes.
And then it seemed like there was still you were either planning on doing a show with him, and you're already broken up, but he was going to do a podcast with you, right?
Yeah.
And then you were talking about, which is, because I have a similar thing going on where an ex of mine, we've done shows together before. 2 of them I deleted because they were like of like sexual content stuff.
Yeah.
And she has kids and it kind of got a little weird. But there was another one but she was talking about coming on again, and then we were going to talk about like conscious friendships after a breakup, or like conscious
conscious uncoupling.
Yeah, and or like or talk about like dating, or like talk about like just this like the name I kind of threw out, like exes talk about the sexes. So it's like you have like somebody that like knows you very well, but then so I'm like, I have already had that kind of going on, and then I'm listening to you and it's like, wow, there's like this, you're like in this same kind of universe as me. So can you like describe like what, just tell us about that. I don't want to ask too specific, I just want to hear about that.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you brought that up, because my ex and I were actually able to, once he left Costa Rica and we broke up and we kind of got over our own ego, her, and feeling like we were the victim, we were able to become really good friends. And luckily we didn't damage each other too bad in the divorce, so it wasn't too much to get over. I think once the relationship was over and we both knew it, we were able to move on really quickly, which was really nice in the end. And we actually talked about sexual things on the phone after he left and we'd broken up that we had never talked about before, like past partners and just this and that, and secrets that I guess we didn't feel comfortable talking about before. So it's interesting how, when you can open yourself up to having a bond with this person and getting out from the hurt or the stories that we create, this person can actually be a friend or an ally. And I think that's what conscious uncoupling is all about. It's just saying this relationship doesn't work anymore for whatever reason, and it's not a failure. It's just the end of a chapter, and we can kind of walk on with dignity and grace, but still have each other in our lives, maybe, if that's what we want, maybe not, but that it doesn't have to be such like a drama,
Yeah.
And I think too, like with families, a lot of times families end up getting hurt because people get cut off, and there's a lot of just drama and hurt that's unnecessary. I think that just because 2 people decide that they don't necessarily want to be together, I think there's much better ways that we can handle it, and that we could teach our kids how to handle it, better examples we could put on. I think in the media, we don't really have good examples of that as kids, right? Of like how to pick good partners and then how to exit the relationship when it's over.
Yeah.
It's not a skill we really learn.
Yeah, I think like with a lot of the TV shows, like a lot of times like the guy looks dumb, or it's like the fat guy, quote unquote. I'm not trying to like say anything bad about fat people, but it's the fat guy with the hot chick.
Right.
It's the
like the lazy guy that's incapable.
Yeah.
And he's always getting in trouble by the wife, right? That's like yelling at him.
Yeah, Homer Simpson, kind of like. So it's
everyone loves Raymond, King of Queens, right? I don't watch much TV anymore. I'm just thinking of old shows. I'm sure that stereotype continues.
Yeah, I don't watch very many, but it is like King of Queens. That was the one I was talking about. Like, he's not just playing a man; he's playing a fat man.
Right.
It's part of the character. It's not just like he just happens to be a little chunky, and and then she's a knockout. And, so
it's very disempowering for men and couples in general, I think. And just, I mean, I'm not necessarily sure like whether to take it in that direction, this conversation, but I just think that the portrayal of men and masculinity in the media in general is something that's really skewed and dangerous and toxic, and has created a lot of these stereotypes and a lot of guys are confused and not really sure how to express themselves in relationships or how to have their needs met emotionally. And, you know, there is a lot of fallout from that. And that whole like fairy tale relationship that we're brought up with from very young doesn't help, right? Because we have this idea like everything's going to be perfect. We're going to find that person that completes us. They're going to tick all these boxes and I don't have to do anything. I just have to show up and be me and I'll be saved. And that person doesn't save you. And then the real life sets in, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you have a whole new set of problems to
deal with. Yeah, then you're stuck in a relationship that sucks. No.
Yeah, so like with like doing the podcast, and you know, I'm curious because like when I'm talking with my ex about the show, sometimes it seems like, oh, this is gonna be a really cool idea, and then we're talking and talking, and then it's like whatever starts to get brought up, and then it's like, oh yeah, this is why we don't really work right. Like find myself like maybe getting frustrated about something, or like, so do you find that too? Like as long as it's like in this dose, like you and your ex, you think you could have like these cool shows, these cool conversations, and help teach people. But then if it's like too much, it's like, oh yeah, that's why
we broke up. Yeah, no, him and I only did one show actually, to be fair, and it was a divorce episode. It was after we had already broken up. And then my partner that I'm with now, I think we only did 2 episodes, 1 or 2 episodes, 2. And then we went to do one the other day actually about divine masculinity and femininity, funny enough, and we started fighting before, and I was like, forget it, I don't want to talk about this anymore, get out of here, I'm gonna do my own episode. So yeah, it's difficult. Are you alluding to just like working together maybe? Because my partner and I now, we fight like cats and dogs when we work together. It's not easy.
Yeah. I was wondering, like, I'm not seeing anyone now.
Yeah.
He is. I mean, I was kind of like seeing someone not too long ago, and so then I was like wondering, okay, well, what's that dynamic going to be if she comes to my place? I mean, obviously I can do shows remotely, but like if she comes to my place and does then like, how does that affect like what she's trying to have with this other relationship? And does he even care? And then, and then it was kind of like this thing where like she said, like she didn't think he would care. And I'm like thinking, well, why not? Like, it almost seems like weird not to
like,
care.
why wouldn't he care? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she just needs to have a conversation about it either way with him. It's like whether he cares or not is his own choice, but he needs to at least be given the information.
Yeah. So with that's kind of a lot of what I was thinking about. Cause like when I was hearing your show earlier, it was like all this kind of stuff. I was like, oh, I have this almost exact same thing going on. We weren't married, but
yeah.
Like in your like psychotherapy practice, do you have a specialty? Like, is there something that you focus on?
I work mostly with people I work with all kinds of people, honestly, but the way that I work and try to get my clients to like approach their life is like one where I'm trying to get them to take responsibility for their health, their happiness, their freedom, like to understand that their choices that they make every day are going to have impact, and their beliefs and their thoughts and all those things. So, you know, I guess when you talk about like specialty, I really like to work with people and helping them to find purpose in their life. Of course, finding balance is what therapy is all about. That's always a goal in psychotherapy, is to help bring all the different parts of life into balance. And if you've heard of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once we're able to have those basic needs met and we feel good and we're healthy, we're taking care of ourselves, then we're able to move up that pyramid up towards self-actualization, where we can start to be more creative and whatever, have more enriching and fulfilling relationships and be more spiritual, you know, but we need to have those basic things taken care of first. So I really like to get my clients to see that, you know, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not loving yourself, there's never going to be a place in the world where you feel good, because you're not taking care of yourself. It's like pretty basic, you know. And I also work with plant medicine. ayahuasca in particular. It's something I've worked with personally for many years. I've worked with all kinds of psychedelics, and I'm really interested in bridging psychotherapy with ayahuasca. And so it's something that I'm constantly learning about, and it's a really new and exciting area because ayahuasca is still technically illegal in the United States and in many parts of the world. But the FDA and different government agencies are starting to recognize things like psilocybin and the active ingredient in mushrooms and MDMA for things like depression and PTSD and anxiety. And so it's really paving the road for other types of plant medicines. And so my partner and I do plant medicine retreats here in Costa Rica. We don't lead them, so I'm not a shamana. I just want to make that clear to anyone listening, but I help to organize them. I bring in a healer, a leader, and then I do the integration, so the psychotherapy part. So what I found in this work is that it's really important to be able to take what you find in a ceremony, all the lessons that come, and to be able to process that and to understand how to take that into your life and to make changes and to keep it going. Sorry, the cicadas are getting really loud.
I can still hear you. I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And to make sure that they don't just go home and then, they're on a big high and then they feel depressed because they're going back into work and talking to Carol and Bob and Sue and whoever else is in their office who has no idea this experience they've been through, So for me, I really want to make sure people have the tools and techniques to take that back into their life and to try to make some changes. So that's kind of where my focus is right now.
Yeah, it seems like it's where a lot of people's focus is right now. I guess in a way it kind of always has been, but you hear like more and more of it, and like all these like retreats, and then like if you ever listen to Joe Rogan podcast.
Mm-hmm. My partner does religiously, so I come in and out when he's listening.
Yeah. So he's always talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's like I've never tried DMT. I haven't done a hallucinogen in a long time, but I've done mushrooms and pretty high doses of LSD, and I was mostly in high school and only one time after high school, because like once my daughter was born, I like cut out most of everything. I'd still like smoke weed sometimes, but I haven't done anything, smoke or drink or nothing, in almost 7 years now.
Oh, wow, it's amazing.
But like compared to so you've done LSD also, or
just one time actually?
Like much like what I was going to ask
mushrooms
is like,
many times, but
mushrooms many times.
Yeah.
So how would you compare the teacher quality of ayahuasca compared to mushrooms?
Mushrooms is more playful in the sense that they consider it to be more the grandfather medicine. You can hear some people would refer to it that way, whereas ayahuasca would be referred to as a grandmother energy, a grandmother spirit. So ayahuasca is more, you get what you need, but you might not always like it. Like you could have a dark trip, which I say dark trip in the sense that like it might be what you need. It's not necessarily something that's going to traumatize you. Like it might feel scary, or some people might even feel like they're going to die, but then they realize after that it's an ego death. For some people it's like really light and beautiful and rainbows and sparkles, and so there's a lot of ranges in between on the types of experiences that you can have, and it's really based on your intention. And you might vomit the whole time, you might be going to the bathroom a lot, so it's rough, and mushrooms tend to be more playful. Of course, you can take too many mushrooms and might feel like you're going to lose your mind. But in general, if you just take a normal dose of mushrooms, it's going to be a lighter, more playful energy, more creative versus like cleansing,
Yeah. Yeah. DMT, it looks like your microphone turned off.
I was just muting it so that you don't hear the bugs.
Oh, I see. Okay. I see. Yeah, DMT or ayahuasca, it's like the one thing that I still kind of find a little bit of temptation for. And it's like, I don't
Yeah.
know why. I kind of, in a way, I don't feel like I need it, but it's like, I'm pretty curious. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I've taken like pretty high amounts of LSD, but it was, in high school.
Yeah.
And I was doing it for like, what I was at least calling spiritual reasons. Like one time was at a Grateful Dead concert, and but then other times were after that, and we'd be out in the woods, and so it wasn't like a party thing for me. It wasn't like,
It
oh, we're
wasn't
just gonna take some.
recreational.
Yeah, yeah, it was like
It was
a spiritual journey. That was the whole
for,
point.
yeah.
Yeah, the DMT. Have you tried like just DMT by itself, or just
Once actually as well. Yeah.
how would you
So
compare that, like the DMT experience versus the ayahuasca?
honestly, like the main difference is just the amount of time. It's just that the DMT by itself generally is about 15, 20, maybe longer minutes. With ayahuasca, it's going to be about 5 to 6 hours. So it's like DMT on, I don't know, times 20,
And
know,
like, what
but
about
they're
the plate?
similar.
What about the like beings that are, like Joe Rogan explains it pretty well, and it seems like a lot of people have a pretty similar story about maybe even perhaps meeting the same being, like,
In different experiences, you mean?
yeah, or like meeting like the same. I don't know if like God is the right word, but you're meeting like the same um, other dimensional being of some sort. Like, are you having those experiences, or like, what is your
Are you talking
what,
about like in general or with one versus the other?
in general? So like
In
taking the
general.
ayahuasca, like,
Yeah, I mean, they say ayahuasca has a consciousness, so it's like it's the grandmother spirit, and some people have other spirits that visit them and spirit guides, and yeah, when they describe it, might multiple people might see similar things. For me, I'm very intuitive and empathic. I read energies very well, and I tend to like facilitate a lot more than anything. So a lot of it is just kind of like being able to like tune in with the people in the ceremony, like using the medicine sort of to help you heal or guide to know what to kind of do to help people in different ways. And for some people, it might be meeting with these different entities to get information, or to get certain questions answered. For me personally, I don't necessarily have, I think, those same questions. And I think for me, a lot of it is more with ayahuasca. It's like seeing the holographic universe that we live in. It's like really like you going out into the sky and looking up and really being aware of the energy fields and how everything connects and the different layers of stars. And I mean, one time I almost felt like I could see where the hologram peeled back, like it's just like really interesting. Like I can, yeah. For me, it's more like that, like energetic waves and seeing people as frequencies. So definitely, but I've heard like you're saying people have met certain entities or spirits. But ayahuasca, the thing about ayahuasca is you generally develop a relationship with the plant. So I don't know if that's necessarily what he is talking about, but you might hear her talk to you. You might feel her presence. For some people, it's a very clear, loud voice. For other people, it's just like a feeling or a knowing. For some people, she's very playful. For other people, she's more like strict. But that's the thing, is like you kind of get what you need.
yeah.
So it manifests in different forms based on the person taking the substance.
You ever find that people ever regret it?
I mean, yeah, I think if people aren't ready for it and you really want to have a spiritual foundation to do something like ayahuasca, because it's a spiritual journey And if you don't have a context to understand, like if what I just said to you about living in a holographic universe is like, what the hell is she talking about? Like maybe you shouldn't do ayahuasca. But if you're someone who has more of an understanding of what reality is and spirits in general and the human experience and infinite self, and you've done some of those studies, then I think you're less likely to have a bad trip. But definitely people can become depressed after doing ayahuasca or can become anxious. I have a story of a kid. If you don't mind, I'll tell the story. It's a crazy story. If we have time, I'll tell it short. Basically, I was on Facebook. I was in Peru a couple years ago, and I was on Facebook, and my partner and I had just posted that we were Facebook official, which is basically like you're married then. And this guy commented on my post and said, "What happened to Peter?" And that's my ex-partner's name, my ex-husband. But no one ever called him Peter. They called him Pete. And I didn't know who this guy was. And it didn't say Pete's name anywhere on my profile. And the whole thing was really weird. And when I looked at who he had as a mutual friend, it was my current boyfriend, Russell. And so I was asking him, like, who is this guy? Like, why is he commenting? And I started asking the guy, like, who are you? And this is long story short, he was telling me things like, oh, we've been in a ceremony together, but you don't actually know me. And I was just like, what is this guy talking about? And he's like, and I heard you talking about Peter, and I could tell that you were in love with him, and it was when you were married, and saying all these like really creepy details that even if he had been some kind of an internet stalker, it would have been unlikely for him to know the things that he was saying to me, because I don't really share, especially at this time that I was doing plant medicine, nothing like that. And upon further prodding and trying to get the full story out of this kid, he's 21 at the time, and told me that he, about 3 years prior, had done an ayahuasca ceremony in Colombia where he didn't know what it was, and his friend invited him to come, and he kind of went into it blindly and didn't really have a spiritual background, didn't believe in God or Jesus or any, like, according to him, he doesn't believe in any of that crap. And it was in this church called Santa Daime, which I won't get into that, but it's a very particular Brazilian church that is kind of a blend of Christianity and ayahuasca. Like, they use ayahuasca in the church, and it's very interesting, but maybe not, I don't know, not necessarily the best place to do it for your first time. And so he took the first dose, he didn't feel anything. So they gave him a second cup, he still didn't feel anything. And they gave him a third cup, and he completely lost touch with time and space and reality. He didn't know how much time had gone by. And he said all of a sudden he was just outside in this field, and there was a bonfire, and he walked up to it, and there was a woman who he said he thought it was his sister because of her nose, and she was crying and talking about Peter, and he could tell she had love in her heart. And he was like, and then when I saw your picture on Facebook, I realized it was you that I saw in my vision or in my trip 3 years ago. And I was like, wait a minute, what day was this? When did you do it? And he ended up figuring out it was April 14th of this year, of 2014. And it was the same exact day that I had been in a ceremony in Costa Rica and was like standing by this fire. And it was a month after Pete and I had gotten married, and he had just went back to the States. There was like all this drama, and it blew my mind. I was like, what is this kid talking about? Like, he basically, if you believe it, traveled through like different time and space dimensions and ended up in our ceremony. And apparently, according to him, he saw me and remembered me. And there's no way that anyone would have known I did a ceremony on that day. Like, the chances that it was the exact same day 3 years before are just too slim, Yeah. And he ended up getting really messed up from that experience because he had no idea what happened to him. No one was there to support him after. He ended up in the hospital for 2 months was depressed, anxious. And this was, 3 years later that I had finally kind of met him and was talking to him, and he had even considered suicide. He was like wanting to jump into the subway. I mean, he was really lost from this experience. And so for me, it was kind of like, okay, that we were brought together for a reason. Sorry, the sun's set and it's getting dark.
I can still see your face.
Okay.
I can still see.
Okay, cool. And so I really just kind of helped him and tried to support him and try to help him to understand a little bit more of what happened to him. But I mean, he really regretted doing it. He was like, very much against ayahuasca and the whole experience, and rightfully so. I mean, he almost lost his life because of it. And I think analyzing the situation, he did it. The people who gave him the medicine were very irresponsible. They shouldn't have given him that much. They should have made sure that he knew what was going on beforehand. There should have been people for him to talk to after. And that's why, for me, I will only do ceremonies where people kind of have to stay the night, and then we can all meet together and talk the next day and integrate what happened, instead of just like, okay, see ya. Good luck.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing that.
I know, it's a crazy story.
Yeah, hopefully it would end up being, even though it was obviously traumatic, maybe it could be at least some kind of awakening, because he can maybe see how things really are, and just like there's more to it. And something that stuck out when you were saying like about your therapy practice was you help people to find purpose.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of like thought about that a lot, like meaning versus happiness. So a lot of people think they want to find like happiness, but like I listened to Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's been on Joe Rogan. If you don't know who he is, did you say you do or you don't know?
I've heard of him, but yeah.
Yeah, he has he's been on Joe Rogan a few times. Those are really cool to listen to. But he's a psychologist. He was a professor, and now he travels around. But he talks about finding meaning rather than happiness. Like, because then if you find meaning, if somebody's depressed, he's like not saying like, well, that's not necessarily crazy, because like, well, right now your life sucks. So if you weren't depressed, that would be kind of weird, because you got to get yourself together.
It's a logical reaction to the situation you're in. Yeah,
this is like, it makes sense for you to be. Makes sense for you to have the blues right now,
right?
And then that looks really cool, the background there.
Okay, I can turn if you could see me.
Yeah, that looked really neat back there.
There you go.
Yeah, and so what was I saying? Oh, so yeah, that looks really cool. I'm gonna have to get out.
Yeah, you won't see me as much, but that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, I can still see. I don't know if what your picture looks like to you, but I can see you. I can see the background. Perfect. It looks really cool. So when someone comes to you so it's just somebody, they're coming to you as a therapist, do you ever recommend the ayahuasca?
It would depend on the person, for sure. If I've worked with them for a while and I felt that they would really benefit from it and they were open to that kind of thing, absolutely. And actually, I have had a client come on one of my retreats. But she approached me. She heard about it through my podcast, and it was all her idea. And so, I wasn't like advertising it to her. And I ethically am very cautious I don't want there to be a conflict of interest there. So if I do suggest it to someone, I don't do it in the context of like, and I have a retreat coming up. Yeah. It's more of like, have you considered this? Have you done psychedelics? Are they something you would consider? And it is usually with clients who are more looking for meaning or purpose, or trying to understand some things that, conventional society and the culture that they were raised in, it's not providing these answers. And I feel like they're doing everything right, but it's still not clicking for them. And they're still, like you're talking about, not finding that meaning, like on paper, everything might be great. And then if they're like, really like, I'm lost, I don't know, blah, 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 this and that, that's when I would really start recommending plant medicine, for sure.
Yeah, I would imagine it's I I guess I didn't even like think about like the ethical, like whatever kind of like legal, ethical stuff for your
practice. Yeah.
for your practice. I bet it can get
Tricky.
yeah. Yeah, that's a fascinating thing though.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and it is something that it's a fringe, it's kind of living on the fringe of society in many ways, and it's the same with people who were using CBD for many years, who I worked with many families who had children who had autism or other developmental disabilities or seizures, who CBD and marijuana was amazing for them. And I was a lot of the time bringing it as an option for them, but we weren't allowed to tell anybody. They had to get it illegally. If anyone found out that they were giving this to their children, they could have been arrested or had their kids taken away. But for me, it was like, okay, well, do I risk my career for what I know is right and what can really help this family and these people, or do we continue letting antiquated bureaucracy and corporate interests control our lives? I think for me, like, I'm an Aquarian too, so like if you study astrology, we're very much like the rebels that want to like beat the system and find that ultimate freedom utopia. So I'm definitely willing to live on that fringe to accomplish that if I have to, if that means doing things that others might consider illegal. If it's
Yeah. Is that part of what makes Costa Rica like your home? Like, cause you feel like you can do more of what you think is right, like how you want to live, like free, and is that?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny that you say you're very intuitive, by the way. Your questions are bringing out stories I don't usually tell. The reason I actually moved here, which I don't tell a lot of people this story, was because when I was an animal activist, I started getting persecuted for doing things that were legal and lawful and just protest behavior that was effective and was pissing a lot of people off because people were losing money. And all of a sudden I had private investigators coming after me, and I was getting sued, and I had the FBI after me for a little while, and for nothing that I ever did. It was just because they saw that I had a lot to lose, and I was someone who was speaking out against things that were messed up, and are not, that people aren't talking about, and so they came after me. And when I realized that I can't even speak out about like bunnies being torn, like opened up while they're alive and having chemicals poured in them simply because of money and all these other horrific things I'm not even going to talk about, I was like, forget this place. The government and the police are there to protect the property and the money and the finances. They're not there to protect the people. And so that's why I ultimately left. And I was just kind of scared living in the US. It was pre-Trump, it was pre all of that, but I knew things weren't going to go in a good direction, and honestly, I had a lot of dreams of like actual dreams when I was asleep, not like, oh, I have a dream, but like actual dreams of like of having a commune, of like starting, not necessarily a commune, but just a place where friends and family could come one day. It was by the ocean. It was like a lot of these images of like working together, and I never really knew what that was foreshadowing. And now I kind of started realizing like that was part of my journey, was to come here and create a place and a space where people can live free of persecution and, hopefully still have access to organic food and clean water. I mean, all the things that are getting taken away from us in the States.
Well, you've been there for how long now?
I've been here 5 years, off and on, 3 years full time.
Do you find there is is an influx of people moving there or is it still?
It depends. I mean, there's different tourist parts of this country, so there's definitely more and more expats coming. They're not all American. There's different parts of Costa Rica that have more Americans than where I live. We have a lot of people from Sweden, from Israel, from Germany, a lot of Canadians. I live in Santa Teresa. It's a little peninsula. So we're a little bit more isolated down here, but definitely there's a lot of gentrification happening around Costa Rica for sure. And there's a lot of corruption in general. So when you bring outside money into a corrupt country whose economy is going down, that's a whole other episode we could record.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know it's like a popular place. I had a cousin, she didn't move there. She like went there and she was talking about staying there, and she didn't end up staying. But I was, thinking of like, because I think I have like access to ayahuasca if I want it here.
Yeah.
And I also thought about going somewhere else because like part of me is like kind of like paranoid also of like,
right.
I don't want to get in trouble for something stupid.
Yeah.
And it's almost like so I was thinking I've looked into going to like some retreat and where I could do it in the right setting that wasn't just a commercial thing. Like I saw one guy, and it's okay to make money. I'm not against, if there's some guy making a lot of money, I'm okay with that. If he's legit, if he's sincere and really knows what he's doing, he could be making millions of dollars. I'm 100% fine with somebody getting paid well for being good at what they do. But like I saw like one thing, this guy was in, I don't know if it was Peru or somewhere around there maybe, but this guy like went there from America and then basically started a shaman business. And he was like looking at
business.
Yeah. And was like you look around his like hut and he's like, this is $200,000 right here. And it's like,
and he's happy about that.
And just like the different amount of ayahuasca he had. And it was like, I'd hate to plan something that's supposed to be this major spiritual experience and then have that guy
and then like show up. Yeah, you want to do your research for sure. You want to be able to, like I said, the integration is an important piece. I think there's a lot of people who want to go to Peru and do it authentically in a tribe, which is great. I get that. I understand why people want to go do it at the roots. But also what I found is that sometimes those places don't necessarily give someone from the West all the tools that they need to integrate their experience, because in somewhere like Peru, ayahuasca is such a big part of their culture that they don't understand necessarily why integration is so important, because they don't need it. It's kind of hard to explain, but my friend who's a shaman actually asked me that, like, what is all this about integration? Why this and that? Like, too much talking, the medicine does the work for us. Yes, but we have to kind of know how to make sense of the experience and then how to take that into the world with us. So that being said, for different people, there are different experiences that are appropriate, right? Not everything's for everyone. For some people, they're going to go into Peru and the Amazon and find exactly what they need. For someone else, maybe coming to Costa Rica with a therapist might be better. It's really it just depends. For me, it's all about safety, number one. It's like, I want to make sure that people are safe, that they're able to integrate what they're doing, and then that we're not causing like a carbon footprint or a lot of waste from the event. That's really important to me. It's all plant-based. All the food is organic. It's completely waste-free. I'm a plastic freak. I will not, even our buckets are reused old water bottle containers that I go finding on the beach. I'm very adamant about that, So in terms of consciousness, that's what I'm trying to promote, is if we're going to come together and try to work on ourselves and our egos, we really need to be conscious of what we're putting out there. So also building a community, right? You come to the retreat, you build a family, you learn about good food, you learn about what you're putting into your body. you understand about the local community that you're in. We actually do it at a rescue center as well. So the proceeds go to benefit them and the animals. So you get a tour that's ethical. It's all kind of well thought out. So it's not just like, oh, come pay us and we'll give you this medicine and kick you out, because people need to make money, like you said, but it needs to be done with the right intentions. And for me, intentions are everything.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. It sounds like you do have it like dialed in to somebody that understands, because you understand like the Western science of the mind and the more tribal sort of nature of it, and the so I know you have to get going. You have a patient,
a client, bummer.
I'd be happy to have you on again, and so how can people get a hold of you?
RimaTheJungleGirl.com is the best way to find me, because on there you can find the podcast, you can find the plant medicine retreat. We have one May 4th to the 11th. So there's all the information there. And then April 1st, I'm not sure when this will air, but April 1st, we're moving into a new house that is 3-bedroom, 3-bath, and each room has its own entrance. So we can host people in Costa Rica. We can do personal retreats, personal ceremonies, therapy retreats, all that kind of stuff, vegan meals. Really excited about that. So if you just go to RimaTheJungleGirl.com or on Instagram, Rima_Danielle, you can get in touch.
Yeah, and Rima is Rima, and
yes.
It'll be published tonight. I'm gonna do it now.
Awesome. Wow,
cool. I'll let you go. I know you have to get ready for your appointment.
Thanks so much, though. It's been a real treat. I enjoy this open flow, open conversation, and like I said, you got some stories out of me I don't normally tell, so you're good at this.
Yeah, well, very cool. I appreciate that, and I'll stop the recording, and I'll talk to you for just a second when I stop. Thanks again.